The moment any woman got too close, when things started to get intimate, his manhood would disappear. Not go soft, disappear. Gone. The gym was always full in the evenings. Men came to build muscles, women came to keep fit or to admire the muscular instructor who ran the place. His name was Fola. Tall, dark, and built like a warrior, Fola owned the most popular fitness center in the city. People admired his body, feared his temper, and whispered about his arrogance. Fola walked through the gym like a king. He barked instructions at clients, never smiled, and respected no one. Everyone around him had to obey or they'd be thrown out. Even the staff feared him. One Tuesday afternoon, the gym was packed. Music played loud, weights clanked, and sweat filled the air. A young woman named Tolu came in. Shy but determined, it was her first time. She nervously stepped onto the treadmill, trying to adjust the settings. You're doing it wrong, Fola shouted from across the room. Tolu froze, embarrassed. I said, get off if you don't know what you're doing. He barked again, marching toward her. I was just trying to, she began. Trying to destroy my machines? He shoved the stop button angrily. Next time, read instructions before touching anything. Everyone turned. Tolu's face turned red with shame. She stepped off and quietly walked out of the gym. Fola didn't care. That same evening, as Fola drove home in his tinted black SUV, he spotted a woman hawking oranges by the roadside. She had a baby tied to her back, and she was trying to cross the road while balancing her tray. She stumbled slightly, and some oranges rolled onto the street. Mad people everywhere, Fola hissed, instead of slowing down. He revved the engine and splashed water from a nearby puddle on her and the baby. The woman screamed, shielding her baby from the dirty water. People on the roadside shouted at Fola, but he just laughed and drove off. Later that night, he stopped by a roadside suya spot. A poor middle aged man with a weathered face politely approached him. Boss, I beg small help. I never chop since morning, the man said with hands stretched. Fola looked at him like dirt. Go and work, useless man, he said coldly. You think I got this body by begging? The man stepped back, crushed. Fola threw some money at the suya seller, grabbed his meat, and walked back to his car without looking back. That was Fola's life. Powerful, feared, and admired for his strength. But behind the muscles and the confidence, he hid a dark secret, one that kept him up at night, one that no gym mirror could fix, a secret that made him avoid women at all costs. Fowler sat alone in his luxurious apartment that night, staring at himself in the mirror. The muscles were still there. His abs were tight, chest firm, and arms rock solid. To everyone, he was the perfect man. But what use was all this strength when he carried a secret so shameful? He had tried to push it away. He had ignored it, denied it, fought it. But no matter how much he exercised, no matter the money he spent on private doctors and secret clinics, nothing changed. The moment any woman got too close, when things started to get intimate, his manhood would disappear. Not go soft, disappear, gone. The first time it happened, he thought it was a dream, a one time thing, but it kept happening over and over again. He was 27 the first time it occurred, during a project trip to a remote village. A girl there had caught his eye. She was young, dark skinned, soft spoken, and innocent. One thing led to another, and they lay together. It was sweet until it ended strangely. He had felt a sharp coldness spread through his body afterwards. Since that day, everything had changed. Now at 31, he had stopped chasing women altogether. He built his body, bought cars, built houses, but avoided love. No one understood why he was always alone. His parents didn't know. His friends thought he was just too proud. The ladies at the gym thought he was gay. But Fola was neither proud of this truth nor proud of how he treated others. He just couldn't let anyone know. What would people say? A man like him, wealthy, respected, powerful, but with no functioning manhood? He had visited spiritual homes in secret. He had lied to herbalists, changed clinics, traveled abroad. Nothing worked. Each time a woman tried to touch him, he would panic, make excuses, or disappear. It was easier to act arrogant than explain something even doctors didn't understand. One night, his mother called him again. Fola, my son, she said gently over the phone. You are not getting younger. When will you bring a wife home? Fola cleared his throat. Mommy, I'm focusing on work. You've been saying that for 5 years. What are you hiding? He hung up, not rudely, but because the pain in his chest grew too heavy. He stared at his phone for minutes before sighing deeply. If only you knew, he muttered. Fola was tired of living like a lion on the outside and a broken man on the inside, but he had no idea that soon, very soon, everything in his life would start to change. Fola's parents were growing restless. His mother, Mama Fola, had tried prayer, fasting, persuasion, even emotional blackmail. Nothing worked. Her son was becoming an old bachelor, and that made her feel ashamed whenever her friends bragged about their daughters in law and grandchildren. His father, Baba Fola, a calm, respected retired civil servant, didn't say much, but his silence spoke volumes. Anytime Fola came visiting, his father would just look at him and shake his head slowly. This Sunday evening was no different. They had invited Fola over for dinner, pretending it was just to check on him. Fola, his mother began as she served his meal, look at you, so handsome, so blessed. What is left now but a wife and children? Fola forced a smile and sipped his juice. Mommy, we've talked about this before. No, she interrupted. We haven't. You always dodge the matter. You think we don't know people are talking? Mama Titi said I must have given birth to a spirit husband, she added, half joking but fully serious. Babafola cleared his throat. My son, he said, we are not putting pressure on you, but you need to start a family. There are things a man must do before he leaves this world. Don't you want someone to carry your name? Fola wiped his mouth and stood up. I'm tired. I'll come back next weekend. He left without finishing his food. His mother watched him leave, heart heavy. Something is wrong with that boy, she said. Meanwhile, at the gym, rumors were flying. Fola has never dated anyone since he opened this place, one of the female trainers whispered. He's probably gay, another said. Or maybe his thing doesn't work, someone joked, causing the others to burst into laughter. Fola heard the whispers, but acted like he didn't care. His pride wouldn't let him show pain. He threw himself into work. He trained harder. He shouted louder. He became even more aggressive, pushing clients beyond their limits and firing two staff members for small mistakes. His friends, Tunde, Beyo, and Remy, noticed the change. Guy, wetin dey worry you? Tunde asked one night. You dey vex like say life offend you. Bro, you never even try talk to woman since last year, Bayo added. Abi you join cult? Abi na vow? Fola waved them off. Make una rest there. Woman no be food. If una like, make una marry goat. They all laughed. But deep down, they knew their friend was hiding something. Something deeper than pride. Something that made even a man like Fola afraid of love. But Fola had no idea that love was about to find him anyway. When he least expected it, and from a direction no one saw coming. It was a Monday morning at the gym. The sun was bright. The air smelled of sweat and protein shakes, and Fola was already shouting at a trainer who had come 5 minutes late. Next time you come late, don't bother coming at all, he barked. The staff nodded quickly, avoiding eye contact. Just then, the door opened and in walked someone new. She was stunning, fair in complexion, tall, with natural hair packed neatly into a bun. She wore simple black leggings and a sleeveless gym top that hugged her body modestly. She wasn't flashy, but she carried herself like a queen. Fowler turned to shout again, but paused. His voice caught in his throat. For the first time in years, his heart beat differently. He found himself staring. Hello, the lady said, walking to the front desk. I'm here to register. The receptionist smiled. Welcome. Name, please. Adaora. Fowler stepped forward immediately, surprising everyone. I'll register her myself, he said. The receptionist looked shocked. Fowler never attended to clients personally. Adaora smiled politely, confused but calm. He guided her to the registration, showing her around like she was a VIP. He helped her adjust machines, recommended a workout routine, and even offered a free personal training session. His friends, Bayo and Tunde, stood nearby, watching in disbelief. Is this Fola we're looking at? Tunde asked. Maybe the gym ghost has possessed him, Bayo replied. This one a love at first sight. By the end of the week, Fola and Adaura were spending more time together. He became softer, still strict, but gentler when she was around. He smiled more, laughed sometimes. People noticed. Even his parents noticed the change when he visited that weekend. You're glowing, Mama Fola said with a knowing smile. There's a woman involved, Abby. Fola didn't deny it. He simply smiled and nodded. For the first time in years, he felt hope. Maybe he could love. Maybe this one would be different. Maybe Adaora was the key. But deep down, he feared something else. The night she would want intimacy. The night he would have to choose between lying again or losing her. Adaora was patient, kind, and full of grace. Over the next few weeks, a bond with Fola grew stronger. They would meet at the gym in the mornings and go out for dinner at night. She wasn't like the other women Fola had known. She didn't chase attention, didn't ask for money, and didn't even know about his wealth until much later. Fola felt something he hadn't felt in a long time, peace. But there was a storm building inside him. Each time they sat too close, each time she touched his arm gently or laid her head on his shoulder, Fola would feel that old fear creeping in. He knew Adaora was beginning to wonder. She had asked once in a soft voice, Do you not find me attractive? Fola had laughed it off. Of course I do. I just don't want to rush things. He kept giving excuses, stress, tiredness, work deadlines, anything to avoid crossing that line. But Adaora was not foolish. Her patience had limits. One evening, as they sat in Fola's apartment watching a movie, she paused the screen and looked at him seriously. Fola, talk to me. What's going on? He swallowed hard. What do you mean? You're always sweet, always present, but you never want to be close. Are you seeing someone else? Or is there something you're not telling me? Fola looked away. His throat felt tight. I can't explain it, he muttered. Try, she said firmly. But Fola only stood up and walked into the kitchen. That conversation ended there, but the silence that followed was loud. The next day, Adaora showed up at the gym and went straight to Tunde, one of Fola's closest friends. I'm sorry, she said, but can I ask you something personal about Fola? Tunde blinked, surprised. About Fola? Sure. She explained everything, the excuses, the distance, her confusion. Tunde listened quietly, his brows furrowed. Then he nodded slowly. Come with me, he said. That same evening, Tunde, Bayo, and Remy confronted Fola at his house. Guy, we need to talk, Tunde said firmly. Fola was confused. About what? About Adaora And why you're acting like a ghost. Fola tried to dodge it. This isn't your business. But they didn't back down. Bayo folded his arms. Bro, you've been running from this for too long. We're your friends, not your enemies. Talk to us. There was a long silence. Then Fola sat down heavily and said the words he had never told another soul. My manhood disappears anytime I try to sleep with a woman. The room went silent. He told them everything, from the girl in the village to the failed treatment to the shame that haunted him. His friends were shocked, but they didn't laugh. Why didn't you tell us all these years? Remy asked gently. I was ashamed, Fola whispered. How do you even explain something like this? Now, with the truth finally out, his friends knew what they had to do. They had to go back to the beginning. Fola sat silently while his friends processed what he had just told them. The shame had drained him, but there was a strange sense of relief in finally sharing his burden. So, Tunde began slowly. You said it started after you slept with a girl in a village? Fola nodded. Which village? Bayo asked. Can you remember the name? Ijegun Oko, Fola replied. A small place past Oyo. I went there 5 years ago to supervise a borehole project with an NGO. And the girl? Remy asked. What happened between you two? Fola sighed and leaned back. She was quiet, simple. I don't even remember her full name. She brought food for me one evening when I stayed back at the project site. I didn't force her, it just happened. But immediately after, I felt this cold. I can't explain it. I fell asleep and woke up the next morning feeling strange. And from that day, your problem started? Tunde asked, trying not to sound awkward. Fola nodded again. The friends looked at one another. A heavy silence filled the room. We need to go there, Bayo finally said. To the village, to find a girl and ask questions. Fola hesitated. It's been 5 years. What if she's not even there? Then we find someone who knows her, Tunde said. We've come this far. If that's where the problem started, that's where the answers might be. 3 days later, they hit the road in Fola's SUV. The journey was long and dusty, and as they got closer to the village, mobile network began to fade. It felt like entering another world. They arrived late in the afternoon. Nothing much had changed. Mud houses, children playing in the dust, women fetching water from clay pots. Fola led them to the borehole he had worked on, now surrounded by healthy trees and smiling villagers. He approached one of the elderly men nearby. Please, sir, I'm looking for a girl I knew years ago. She used to bring food here during a borehole project. The man squinted. What's her name? I think Morenike, Fola said slowly. Ah, the man's eyes lit up. Morenike? She don't move go town. She dey live with her uncle for Ilorin now. Do you know where exactly? The man nodded and pointed them to a younger man in the village who had her uncle's contact. By evening, they got directions to Ilorin. They spent the night in a nearby guest house and drove to Ilorin early the next morning. After hours of searching through narrow streets and dusty roads, they found the house. Fola's heart raced as he knocked. A woman came out, not Morenike, but when they asked, she confirmed that Morenike used to stay there. She had moved out 3 months ago after her uncle traveled abroad. They eventually tracked her down to a small shop she was managing nearby. When she came out, Fola froze. It was her, still beautiful, still gentle looking, but now older and more mature. Morenike, Fola said softly. She looked at him, confused at first, then recognition flashed in her eyes. You, you're the man from the village. Fola nodded. I need to talk to you. She frowned. About what? They moved to a quiet corner and explained everything, his condition, his struggle, how it all started after their one night together. Morenike was shocked. I swear, I did nothing to you, she said firmly. I never went to any herbalist. I never cursed you. I only gave you food and shared your mat. Fola believed her. Her eyes were clear and sincere, but that left only one question. If Morenike didn't curse him, then who or what did? Fola stood outside Morenike's shop, confused and frustrated. She had spoken gently but clearly. She had nothing to do with his condition, and Fola believed her. Her voice carried no bitterness, no guilt, no hidden anger. She had simply moved on with her life. His friend sat silently in the car as Fola returned. She didn't curse me, he said. They exchanged looks. Then what happened to you? Remy asked. I don't know, Fola muttered. They began the long drive back to Lagos, each man lost in his thoughts. But about an hour into the journey, the car started joking. Bayo, what's wrong with the car? Fola asked. Bayo, who was driving, sighed. Fuel day, water day, but it just day off. Moments later, the car completely shut down. They were stranded on a lonely bush road. It was late afternoon, and no commercial vehicle passed by. The few motorbikes they saw were heading in the opposite direction, and the sun was dropping fast. We can't sleep here, Tunde said. Let's turn back to the village. Maybe we can find someone to help or somewhere to pass the night. They agreed and began trekking back toward Ijegun Oko. By the time they reached night had fallen, the villagers recognized Fola immediately. Ah, big man, welcome back, one said. He forced a smile, but he was tired, and the confusion in his heart weighed more than his legs. The village head, Baba Alaro, offered them a place to sleep in the village hall. Later that night, while the villagers lit lanterns and prepared food for them, an old woman who had been sitting quietly at the corner of the compound slowly stood up. She pointed at Fola. You, she said, her voice low but firm. You were the man that entered the forbidden river, Abby? Fola froze. His friends turned sharply to him. What river? Remy asked. Fola blinked. The one behind the farm site. I went there to cool off during the project. I thought it was just water. I swam inside, washed my body. I even laughed when someone said strangers shouldn't go there. The old woman's eyes narrowed. That water is not ordinary. It is protected by the gods of the land. No outsider is allowed to enter, especially not with pride in his heart. Fola's stomach dropped. So you mean this is not a woman's curse? Bayo asked slowly. The woman nodded. It is not a human being that caused him. It is the river gods. They don't punish immediately, they wait. But when they strike, it is silent and deep. Tunde stood, stunned. So all this time, it wasn't Morenike. The woman looked at Fola. You defiled what was sacred. You mocked the land. That's why your manhood disappeared. Not your flesh, but your power as a man. That's why no woman can touch you. Fola sat down slowly, overwhelmed. His head spun. But why me? I didn't know. It doesn't matter, the old woman said. The gods don't judge by what you know, they judge by what you carry in your heart. And you came here full of pride. The next morning, they requested an audience with the village chief. Baba Alaro listened patiently as they explained everything: Fola's condition, the past, the mistake, the punishment. I warned the workers then, he said, stroking his grey beard, that river is not for outsiders. Please, Fola begged. Is there anything I can do to reverse it? The chief sighed. There is no guarantee, but we can go to the river and offer prayers and sacrifices of apology. With the help of some elders, they gathered traditional items and went to the river bank. Fola was asked to kneel, confess his wrongs, and ask for forgiveness. They poured libations, slaughtered a white fowl, and chanted ancient words. When they finished, The chief looked at Fola. Now we wait. If the gods choose to forgive you, you'll know. But even if they do, not everything comes back the same way. That night, Fola couldn't sleep. He lay on a mat inside the village hall, staring up at the thatched ceiling, listening to the crickets outside and the occasional bark of a distant dog. His friends were fast asleep beside him, worn out from the long day, but Fola's mind was far from rest. He kept replaying the old woman's words in his head. You came here full of pride. The gods don't punish with noise. He had mocked the villagers, mocked their warnings, and walked into sacred water like it meant nothing. In the city, he was untouchable. In the village, he had been humbled. He sat up quietly and went outside. The moon was bright and the night air was cool. He stood near the river path and stared into the trees where the sacred river flowed, hidden in darkness. He couldn't see it, but he could feel something, a presence, heavy and silent. He whispered, Please, I know I messed up. I didn't know. I was foolish, proud. I've lost everything because of it. If the gods can hear me, please help me. His voice broke. For the first time in years, Fola cried. Not out of pain, not even out of fear, but from deep regret. For the years wasted, for the people he hurt, for how he had carried pride like a trophy. He returned to the hall quietly and lay down. Somewhere deep in his heart, he hoped that his apology had reached the ears of the gods. By morning, the villagers gathered to bid them farewell. Fola bowed before the elders. He apologized again, not just for offending their river, but for how he treated the people during the project years ago. The villagers nodded silently, some smiling. You are not the same man who came here 5 years ago, one elder said. That is a good sign. The village chief, Baba Alaro, handed him a small calabash. Keep this in your house, he said. It is not medicine, it is a reminder. Never again allow pride to lead you. They thanked the villagers and got into the repaired SUV. The journey back to the city was quiet. No music, no jokes, just thoughts, heavy ones. Back in Lagos, Fola was greeted by his staff and clients with the usual respect. But something in him had changed. He didn't shout, he didn't boast. He even smiled at the receptionist. His friends noticed too. Guy, are you all right? Tunde asked one evening. Fola nodded. I'm fine. I'm just thinking. That night, Adaora called. She had stopped reaching out after their last awkward moment, but her voice still sounded warm. I've missed you, she said softly. I've missed you too, Fola replied. But deep inside, fear still lingered. Had the gods truly forgiven him? Would anything change? Days passed, then weeks, and yet nothing. His condition remained the same. Still no intimacy, still no response from his body. And one evening, Adaora came to his house, sat down quietly, and placed her hand on his. I think I need to let you go, she said, tears in her eyes. I care about you, but I also need a future, a family. I can't keep waiting and guessing. Fola didn't argue. He nodded slowly. I understand. She stood, kissed his forehead gently, and walked away. Fola sat there long after she left. The gym king, now silent, humbled, and alone. 3 days after Adaora walked out of his life, Fola sat alone in his office at the gym, staring blankly at his computer screen. The gym buzzed with clients. Music played faintly in the background, but to Fola, the world felt quiet, empty. He had finally found a woman he cared about, someone who looked past his fame, his muscles, and his past. But because of one mistake years ago, he had lost her too. His friends tried to cheer him up. Guy, don't give up, Remy said one evening. At least you apologized. You made the sacrifice. Maybe the gods just need time. Tunde agreed. The gods may be powerful, but they're not wicked. They gave you a chance to ask for mercy. That has to mean something. But Fola had lost hope. Nothing had changed since the sacrifice at the river. He still couldn't function like a man. And now, Adaora was gone. Then one morning, a call came through from an unknown number. It was Baba Alaro, the village chief. My son, the old man said, I've been thinking about your case. Fola straightened in his chair. Yes, sir? You see, the gods are not only concerned about actions, they also watch the heart. You did the sacrifice, yes, but your heart was still full of fear and doubt. Sometimes, forgiveness comes when you finally surrender everything, including your worry. Fola was silent. I suggest you return to the river, Baba Alaro continued, not to perform another sacrifice, but to thank the gods. Whether or not they heal you, thank them? Fola asked, surprised. Yes, true humility is not saying, fix me, but saying thank you, even when you don't get what you want. That's the final test. Fola nodded slowly. I understand, sir. 2 days later, Fola drove back to Ijegun Oko. Alone this time. He didn't tell his friends, he didn't announce his visit. He simply showed up at the chief's compound, knelt before Baba Alaro, and said, I've come to thank the gods, whether they heal me or not. The chief smiled. Good. That evening, the villagers led him quietly to the sacred river. He wore a plain white wrapper and went barefoot, carrying no phones, no cameras, no ego. When they arrived, Fola knelt by the river bank and whispered softly, I didn't come to beg again. I came to thank you. I see clearly now. My strength is not in my body or my gym or my money. It's in my humility in my heart. I accept your will, whatever it may be. I just ask for peace. He bowed 3 times and dipped his hands into the water. No thunder struck, no wind blew, but something in him felt lighter. The villagers nodded, pleased. The chief placed his hand on Fola's head and said, Now, go home. The journey back to the city felt peaceful. For the first time in years, Fola didn't feel angry or anxious. He felt calm. He had done all he could. Now he left the rest in the hands of the gods. Fola returned to the city with a different spirit. There was no miracle, no magic, just peace. For the first time, he accepted his situation without bitterness. If he would never have a family, so be it. If he would never be with a woman again, he would live with dignity. His friends noticed the change immediately. You're not as angry as before, Tunde said. You dey even smile now, Bayo added, surprised. Fola chuckled softly. I've stopped fighting. I've made peace with whatever happens. His gym ran smoothly. His staff worked without fear, and he started helping people silently, paying school fees, giving scholarships to boys in the slum, even training some young men for free. The proud lion had become a gentle mentor, but deep inside, a quiet sadness remained. Every time he saw a man walking with his wife or playing with his children, something in him tightened. One evening, as he drove home alone, he passed a couple holding hands under the streetlight. The woman laughed and leaned on the man's shoulder. Folo looked away quickly, swallowing hard. At night, he stared at his ceiling, thinking of Adaora. He remembered the way she smiled at him, the way she believed in him, even when he gave her nothing but confusion. I pushed her away, he whispered, because I couldn't bear the shame. He had her number, but he hadn't called. What would he say? That he was still broken? That nothing changed? So he stayed silent. Weeks passed. Fowler continued his routine work, home, silence, until one Friday night he went out with his friends to unwind. After a long dinner and good conversation, they dropped him off near his estate. As he drove the last street to his gate, Something caught his eye. A young woman alone walking slowly by the roadside. She looked confused, frightened. Her clothes were dusty, her face tired. Out of instinct, Fola pulled over and stepped down. Hello, he called gently. Are you okay? The woman turned around slowly. Fola's eyes widened. It was Morenike. She looked just like he remembered, but thinner, wearier. Her hair was unkempt and her eyes looked tired. Morenike? He whispered. She blinked in disbelief. Fola? He rushed to her. What are you doing here? Why are you alone? Tears welled up in her eyes. I just arrived in the city today. I came to live with my uncle, but I was robbed inside the bus. They took my phone and purse. I lost his address. I've been walking since afternoon. Fola's heart pained him. You should have gone to a police station. I was too scared. I didn't know what to do. Come with me, he said. He took her home, gave her food, and allowed her to sleep in the guest room. That night, as he lay in his room, staring at the ceiling once again, he whispered, God, why is she back now? He didn't know the answer yet, but soon everything would begin to make sense. Morning broke gently and sunlight filtered through the curtains of Fola's apartment. He woke up slowly, confused for a moment, until he remembered, Shh, Morenike. He rushed to the guest room and knocked. Are you okay? He asked. Yes, a soft voice replied. I just woke up. She opened the door. Her face looked calmer, fresher. She had taken a bath and was now wearing one of the simple clothes Fola kept for charity. Thank you, she said. You didn't have to bring me in. Fola shook his head. Don't say that. After all that happened between us, I owe you more than you know. He prepared breakfast, something he hadn't done for a woman in years, and they ate in peaceful silence. As they talked, Fola found out more about her life. Her uncle had promised to help her start a small business in Lagos, but she hadn't even arrived at his house before the robbery. She had nothing, no bag, no phone, no contact, just hope. Stay here until we find your uncle, Fola said. This place is safe. Morenike hesitated. Are you sure? Yes, he nodded, completely. Over the next few days, they lived quietly under the same roof. Fola took care of her like a sister, giving her clothes, helping her search for her uncle, even showing her how to use his phone to contact people. But something deeper was happening. Each morning, Fola found himself watching her more closely. How she laughed, how she cleaned up without being asked, how she never complained. She was gentle, grateful, and kind. And Morenike began to see a different Fola, the man behind the muscles. She saw how he washed his own plates, how he knelt to pray quietly in the mornings, how he offered food to beggars at his gate. One night, it rained heavily. The wind howled, lightning cracked across the sky. There was a power outage. Fola lit candles and checked on Morenike. She was sitting by the window staring at the rain. I used to love the rain, she said. He smiled and sat beside her. Me too. They talked for hours about the past, about life, about regrets. Then silence filled the room. Not an awkward one, but a deep, emotional quiet. Morenike looked at him and asked softly, did you ever find a cure? Fola sighed. Nambarai tried everything. Doctors, herbs, even the river gods. Nothing worked. She looked at him with sympathy, not pity. I'm sorry. Then something strange happened. She reached out, touched his hand, and Fola didn't panic. His body didn't go cold, his fear didn't rise. He felt calm. Later that night, as the rain continued to fall gently outside, one thing led to another. They shared a moment. They drew closer, and when they kissed, it was soft, pure, real. Then, for the first time in 5 years, Fola didn't feel numb. His body responded. His manhood didn't disappear. Fola pulled back slowly, shocked, breathless. He stared at her. She stared back. It worked, he whispered. They held each other in stunned silence, both overwhelmed. It wasn't just the act, it was the healing. Fowler had no idea he had already been healed the moment he let go of pride, confessed, and accepted peace. The gods had forgiven him, but healing doesn't always come with a sign. Sometimes it waits for the right moment and the right act, and that moment had finally come. Fowler sat in silence the next morning, watching the sunlight touch the curtains. Everything felt different because everything was different. He had barely slept, not from fear, but from shock and wonder. It happened. It finally happened. His manhood didn't disappear. He kept checking himself like a child who just found a lost toy. It wasn't a dream. For 5 years, he had lived in shame, searching for answers, running from women, hiding a secret he thought he would die with. But now, after years of punishment, regret, and loneliness, it was over. Morenike stepped out of the guest room, her face shy but warm. Their eyes met, and they both smiled. Good morning, she greeted. Fola stood and walked to her slowly. He took her hands and looked into her eyes. I don't even know how to thank you, he said, but I know this didn't just happen by mistake. She nodded. Me too. I feel like something was waiting for this moment. Fola told his friends everything later that day. Tunde, Bayo, and Remy couldn't believe it. Wait, it worked? Tunde shouted, standing to his feet. No joke? No joke. Fola smiled. The gods healed me. I just didn't know. Bayo shook his head. Now, wow. So, after all the river story, sacrifices, trekking, it was already done. You just needed the right person, the right heart. And peace, Remy added. You needed to be at peace with yourself. They were all happy, genuinely happy for him. Fowler's parents were next to hear the news. He invited them over one evening. Mama Fowler came prepared with a long list of potential wives and even a pastor's daughter to suggest. Before she could start, Fowler stopped her with a smile. I have something to tell you, he said. First, I want to say I'm sorry for all the years I was stubborn, proud, and disrespectful. His mother blinked. Fola, I wasn't just avoiding marriage, he continued. I was hiding a very shameful truth. I lost my manhood after a mistake I made in a village years ago. It was spiritual and it humbled me. I went through hell, but I've been healed. There was silence. His father, Baba Fola, leaned forward. You mean it's working now? Yes, Fola smiled. And the woman who helped me find that healing is Moreniki. He turned and called her into the living room. She stepped in slowly, head slightly bowed, respectful. Mama Fola stared at her for a long moment. Then she smiled. You're beautiful, she said, and quiet. I like you. Tears filled her eyes as she hugged Moreniki gently. Baba Fola nodded. Satisfied? That same week, Fowler proposed, not with loud music or party lights, just a quiet dinner and a ring placed gently on Moreniki's finger. She said yes. And months later, in a small but beautiful traditional wedding, they tied the knot. No fanfare, just love, family, and gratitude. Fowler had come full circle, from pride and punishment to humility and healing. Pride leads to downfall, but humility opens the door to healing. True change begins when we accept our wrongs and seek peace with a sincere heart